Hey guys and girls, welcome to your writing lesson today. Let's begin with your learning target. I can write a fictional narrative story. Now, a fictional narrative story is a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. There are characters, there's a setting, there's usually a problem and a solution. However, fiction means that it is imaginative. It's made up. It is not real, and it has not happened in real life. Now, you can have realistic fictional stories and you can have unrealistic fictional stories. Your realistic fiction stories is a story that's never happened before, but it could happen in real life. There might be humans or pets, real places in real life might be in the story. Or if you're having unrealistic stories, that's where you're going to have like your magic, your talking animals, dragons, stuff like that you're really not going to see in real life. Remember, a fictional narrative story is just a story. It's written just for fun, just to entertain your readers. Let's go ahead and review what a setting is, because yesterday we planned out the characters in our story. We decided whether or not our story was going to be realistic or unrealistic, and then we chose the characters, the main character, as well as additional characters, secondary characters that are going to be in our story. No, we're not writing a story right now. We're just planning. This is all of this that we're doing this week is going to make it a little bit easier for next week when we do actually begin writing our story. So we've got our characters ready. We've planned those out. Now we're going to discuss the setting of our story. Now, what is the setting of a story? A setting of a story tells where and when the story takes place. The time, the place, and the environment. And you can think of that as like weather. So here are just some examples on this anchor chart. Time tells when. It could be the morning, the afternoon, the night. It could be 12 o'clock. It could be 1 o'clock. The place tells where. Might be a home, on a boat, at the store, at a park. The environment is what it's like outside. Think about the weather. It might be hot, dark, rainy, breezy. All of these details tell about the setting. Now, the setting affects all of the details that happen in the story and how the characters react in the story. You need to make sure, as you're planning your setting for your first fictional narrative story, that your characters and your setting go together. For example, you would not want to have an astronaut as your main character and the setting be on a farm. That doesn't go together. Or you would not want to have a mermaid as your main character taking place at the mall. That doesn't go together. So you need to make sure that your characters and your setting go together. So I'm going to begin planning my setting, but before I do, let's review my characters and my story that I went ahead and planned out yesterday. Now, I decided that I'm going to write a realistic fictional story. So my story is not real, but it could happen in real life. So I'm going to have real humans in my story. So my main character is going to be Cody. He's 8. He's very adventurous. He likes to read, and he likes to read books about animals. Some other characters that are going to be in my story that are going to help tell Cody's story is going to be his best friend named Alex. Alex is very shy. Then we're going to have Sarah. She works at the petting zoo and is a zookeeper. And then we're going to have Cody and Alex's teacher, Mr. Larson, and that's their second grade teacher. So I've got 4 characters going on, my main character, and 3 secondaries. Now, remember, my story is realistic, so it's not going to make any sense for my story to take place on the moon or to take place under the ocean or in the sea, because I'm writing about a realistic fictional story that could happen in real life. So my setting needs to match my characters. So let's go ahead. You're going to receive, just as I'm about to complete, you're going to receive this setting planning sheet in Seesaw in just a little while. I want you to be thinking about where's your story going to take place and when is it going to take place? Where and when. Now, your story can have a bunch of different settings. For example, you might wake up in the morning and be at home. And then as you go through the day, you might be at school. So there's 2 settings, home and school. You might ride the bus home. There's another setting on the bus. But for today's purpose, we're going to plan out our setting for the majority of our story. Yes, you're going to have some different settings taking place inside of your story, but today we're going to focus on and plan our major setting where most of our story is going to be taking place. So remember, I've got Cody. He's an 8-year-old little boy in 2nd grade. He likes adventures and he likes reading about animals. So my setting is going to be, in my fictional narrative story, at the zoo. And I'm just making it up. We're going to call it Cherry Street Zoo. And I'm just going to describe it for you. Give some details on your planning sheet. This is a large zoo with over 700 animals. It has a petting zoo, daily shows, and a carousel. It has boat tours, food stands all around the park. The animals have large natural habitat enclosures. So right here, my where is this zoo, Cherry Street Zoo. Now, I've made this up. Now, yes, I've been to a zoo before. I've never been to Cherry Street Zoo because that's a zoo that's made up. So I'm describing what I want this zoo to look like in my story. Now, when is my story going to take place? It's going to take place on a school field trip during the day in the springtime. So I've got, it's daytime, we're on a school field trip, and it's springtime. So that kind of lets me know what the weather's going to be like as well. So at the zoo, on a field trip during the daytime in the spring. Now, you can go ahead at the bottom and add in some additional scene settings that you think might take place in your fictional narrative story, but you don't have to do that. I've got one additional scene setting, and mine is the petting zoo enclosure. It has goats, deer, sheep, and chickens. And that just goes along with my characters from yesterday that I planned out because Sarah is a zookeeper who works in the petting zoo. So it only makes sense that I have a setting that's at the petting zoo because she's a character in my story. So today, all you're going to do in Seesaw is come up with your setting to your fictional narrative story. Think back or look back at yesterday's writing activity. Look at your characters that you decided on, the ones that you've created or named for your first story. Then think, where do I want my story to take place? I want you to tell me where and when. That's going to be the majority of your story. Now, if you have any additional settings, like I did, the petting zoo, then you can add that down at the bottom of your planning sheet. But today, let's focus on the major setting of your story, where and when it takes place, and then you can add any additional scene settings at the bottom if you want to. All right, guys, I cannot wait to read these setting planning sheets. I'm getting real excited about our first fictional writing narrative story. So if you need me, give me a call, and happy writing.